child. Parents are often unaware of the financial costs of raising a child. More often than not, most of us are overwhelmed with the amount of planning that is required. Alongside the pocket money and school trips, there are long-term costs like funding for university, buying their first car or paying for their wedding. This special report on the steps involved in saving for your children will hopefully make the whole process a lot less intimidating.
When it comes to your child, you want to give them the best. Whether it's about buying a dress or choosing a school, you do not want to compromise on anything. You want to give them more than you ever had in your childhood. But mere thinking will not ensure the best for your child. You also need to plan for their education and other goals so that you have enough money when it comes to making their dreams a reality. By simply following these 5 steps, you can certainly ensure the bright future for your children. You first need to understand when you would need that money. You will realize after factoring in all these expenses, a large portion of your budget goes in meeting your child's expenses. There is also need to understand while saving for your child that the rise in cost of education is more than the general inflation. In such a case, it certainly helps if you know how much you need to save for your child. What if something happens to you? Who will put your children through school? Who will provide for their college fees? It's therefore buying a life insurance a must in your portfolio. Decide the right amount of cover for your family that can take care of their needs in your absence. Buy a term plan. Also, buy a health insurance cover to meet those unplanned and sudden expenses. Be sure to buy the insurance plan in your name and not in your child's name. Don't delay. Start investing for your child as soon as possible. The longer you have the time, the more you can save. Invest in equities and PPFs to cash in on long-term benefits of investment. An early start will give you space to start saving for other goals such as retirement. When it comes to investing your money, there are plenty of choices. You need to invest money wisely, understanding the risks involved with each of these products. Mutual funds, insurance plans, debt schemes, gold, PPF have their own advantages and disadvantages. Understand them and invest according to the demand of the situation. Children above the age of 10 can manage their own accounts. Open a minors account to inculcate financial freedom in your children. Minor operated accounts can be managed independently without supervision of parents. They are authorized to sign checks and even transfer funds online. It's good to teach children basics of finance as early as possible. This way they would learn how money grows at an early age.
So with the help of these guidelines, saving for your child's future is hopefully not as stressful. To discuss more on how you can plan your finances for your children, we have Anil Chopra, Group CEO and Director at Bajaj Capital, now joining me. Thanks very much, Mr. Chopra, for coming by. This is actually a very big issue, isn't it? In fact, if you really see the trend, earlier people only started thinking about planning for their future, financial planning, when the first child arrived. Of course, today you have more younger people who begin to start planning even at the ages of early 20s. But it still is a turning point for most people that once the child comes into the family, you begin to start already worrying that how do I kind of plan for the future. So if you could give us a few easy steps to be kept in mind on how a parent can start investing.
Sure, Vivek. So you said it rightly that it's a recent trend of last 5 years or so. The awareness about the need to start saving early for your children's future education is catching up with the young parents now. And the current society has two parents, two incomes and one kid. That's the mostly in the new households you will find that both husband and wife are working and they have only one child, and still their only important goal in life is to give the best education to their one child. And they start dreaming, planning for it even before the child has arrived. So much so is the importance of the planning for children education. And the options are far too many now. You could dream for your child to be a surgeon, or a leading advocate, or even studying in Harvard 15 to 18 years from now. So, and everything costs differently. So first you need to decide as to what kind of education you want to give to your child, and if your child were to take that education today, how much will that cost? It's very important to do this financial calculation on a sheet of paper with a calculator. If today's MBA which you wish to give to your child costs 15 lakhs of rupees, maybe 18 years from now when he's ready might cost you 50 lakhs. And that is because of the inflation factor, and particularly education inflation. The normal inflation that we see on a day-to-day life, what we call the consumer price index, may be rising at about 7-8%. But when it comes to education inflation, that is much higher. That is about 10 to 12%. If we compare the fees that is being paid or collected today by good MBA institutes and what it was about 8 to 10 years ago, then we'll find the education inflation is much higher than the normal inflation. So if you keep that in account and then start planning for your children's education, you arrive at a year in which your child would need the money, which could be say 2030 or 2032, and the amount which will be required after factoring in the inflation. Then you work backward to calculate as to how much you need to save today. Start saving every month, and you would find that invariably there is no option left other than investing your money in a good equity mutual fund scheme, because the education inflation is high. So you can't take a chance by leaving your money in a bank deposit or in a PPF which doesn't even beat inflation. So it's very important that you opt for a scheme where the returns expectations are higher than the inflation. So if inflation is going to be 10%, returns have to be 12 to 15% in order to beat that. So it's important that you build a portfolio comprising of some large cap equity funds, some mid cap equity funds, and maybe a flexi cap thrown in between. And the another important thing is that as you are building your corpus and planning for your children's education in future, couple of years before the goal is to arrive, you must start shifting back your corpus back into the safe options of debt funds, so that you're not taken by surprise if there is a sharp correction in equity markets just at the time when your child is ready for education.
How important is it to segregate this portfolio from your overall portfolio?
Yes.
I might build a portfolio for my long-term wealth building, but when it comes to doing the child-related planning, is it important that you create a certain account or you create a certain scheme, buy it and keep it separately for only this goal, or should it be part of your overall wealth building goal?
Well, like I mentioned, Vivek, earlier, this goal is most close to the hearts of the parents, even more than their own retirement, because they feel this is the best investment that they can make in their own child's education.
Sure.
So they are not shy of putting any amount at stake. And they feel that once the child gets the best of the education and he has a rollicking start to the career, then their own retirement will be well taken care of. So to answer your question, I would say that your normal public provident funds or employees provident funds, etc., should be good enough to take care of your retirement. But when it comes to your children's future education planning, then you must earmark each of your investments specifically linked to that goal. So for example, if you have 2 children and say one 5 and another 3, and you are building a corpus to take care of education of both of them, then whatever mutual fund SIPs you are starting, you must associate or note it that this particular SIP of 8,000 rupees a month, split into 2 different schemes, one large cap, one mid cap, is for higher education of my elder son Ankit. And the other 2 SIPs in different schemes are for my younger son or younger daughter. So it's important that they become sacrosanct. that you do not think of using these funds for any other goal or any other emergency which may come up in your life. And they should only be used for the goal for which you started planning for them. So this is important that your other investments like planning for your own retirement, etc., through PPF or through other real estate, etc., are kept separately from this important goal of education planning.
And when we talk of, you made the number of 50 lakh, even if you take a range of between 50 lakh to a crore, which you may need 20 years from now, given the costs of higher education and the way they're rising, how much do you think should a person be putting aside? I know it's impossible to predict which way the markets are going to go, but if we go back into history, take a 15-20 year kind of a period, how much would be a good number to start with for young parents?
Yes, it's a very important question, but first, before I answer that, it's important to understand that we must start saving early. So not that when the child is already 7 years or 11 years, because then very less time is left. Sometimes we get queries from clients that they say that when he's 15 and he would be needing a lot of money for his higher education when he's 18. It's too short a period, to plan for a higher amount. So earlier you start. So even if you start when the child is 1 or 2, at max you have 15 to 18 years. You don't have 20-25 years. So to get back to a large amount in another 15 to 18 years, one needs to invest in the range of 8,000 to 12,000 rupees to reach anywhere between 50 lakhs to 70 lakhs by the time the child is ready for his higher education. So 8,000 to about 12,000, split into 2 to 3 SIPs of 3,000 to 4,000 rupees each.
And that perhaps every year as your income rises, because you're a young parent.
That's right.
As your income rises, keep adding more.
Yes, and Vivek, that brings me to another point. There is a rising trend these days to plan to send your children abroad for studies. This is becoming a kind of a social status theme, that my son is studying in US or in Australia or in UK. So in order to plan for that, you even need higher amounts. And you can easily accomplish it if you plan to keep on increasing the amount of SIP as and when you get a rise in your own salaries, in your own career. So today, probably you are able to save 8,000 rupees a month, and maybe in another 3-4 years when you get promotions, you might be able to save 12,000 rupees a month. And you might be pleasantly surprised that you are able to save enough money to even fund education abroad.
All right, let's take a quick break here on Money's Best Friend. We will take some of your questions when we return. Keep watching Money's Best Friend. Welcome back. You're watching Money's Best Friend with me, Vivek Law. Let's take some of our viewer queries now. Joining me now is Alex Joseph from Mumbai. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Vivek.
Hi, how are you doing?
All well, Vivek.
Okay.
Compliments of the season to you.
Sorry?
Compliments of the season to you.
And a great year ahead to you as well, Alex. And
thank you.
May you be able to meet all your goals, especially the one you have for your 5-year-old child. Tell me, what do you want to know about her future?
So I wanted to build a corpus of about 40 lakhs for my son over a period of time, and I'm willing to look at a monthly 50,000 rupee contribution towards that goal.
Okay.
So, was wondering as to what kind of schemes or plans could I kind of invest this money into.
And you said your son is 5 years old.
My son is 5 years old.
And you want to reach this goal another 15 years from now, right?
Another 15 years from now.
And you can put in about 50,000 a month?
Correct, that's right.
I think you should be way, way ahead of your 30 lakh goal. But even 30 lakh, honestly, Alex, may not be enough 15 years from now. But Anil, he is at least, it's wonderful talking to a young parent.
Yes.
5 years, he's, I think, made the effort to keep aside a sizable sum of his income.
Clearly focused.
For the child. 15 years, what should he be doing?
Well, 50,000 rupees is definitely a very good sum to be able to save every month, if we heard him correctly.
Yes.
Which would mean that 6 lakhs rupees in a year. And he just needs 30 lakhs. In 5 years, he would have saved 30 lakhs, even, the principal amount. But because he would be putting for 15 years, in good equity schemes, he can actually expect to build a very large corpus. Definitely, he must do his selection of schemes very well. must spread his investments across the various types of schemes, which is large cap fund to begin with, and then mid cap fund also should also be there, and then flexi cap fund also, where the fund manager has the flexibility to shift from large cap to mid cap depending upon the way markets are moving. So it's important that he makes a portfolio, sticks to it continuously with discipline, and also can plan for much better and higher education, even costing much higher. Another thing is that he must be very clear as to which university, what course he is planning for his 5-year-old son. And if he is able to decide upon that and find out what is the current cost if his son was to do that education now, and add about 10 to 12% inflation and find out how much it would be in another 15 years, I think that would give him more clarity about achieving that goal more easily.
But putting aside 50 into these equity schemes every month would certainly take him to the level of 3 crore plus, isn't it?
Definitely, much higher than that. If he's
almost 10 times more than what he's anticipating.
Yes, because if he is going to wait for 15 years, then 50,000 rupees per month would mean 6 lakhs into 15, 90 lakhs of his own money, which would definitely grow to 4 to 5 crores.
And when you say pick the 3 categories of schemes, so in each of these he should pick up one. So about 3.
Well, if he is planning to invest 50,000 rupees a month, we would say that he should go for 2 large cap funds of 10,000 rupees each, 1 mid cap fund of 10,000 rupees, 1 flexi cap of 10,000 rupees, and last 10,000 rupees he could put in one of the thematic funds like an international equity fund or a contra fund or an infrastructure fund, etc., so that he gets a well blend of all the sectors of the economy.
All right. We've got an email now from Monica. She is 40 years old. She's from Muradabad. She says, I have 2 kids, 15 years and 13 years. I want to save for their college. I want to build a corpus of around 30 lakh rupees in 3 to 4 years. How much and where should I invest? I can save around 15,000 rupees every month. Again, as you were mentioning, a little late in the day, because you're giving yourself only 3 to 4 years to build that kind of corpus. But she has 15,000 a month, which of course must start and maybe not get to 30 lakh, but at least somewhere close to that.
Yes, better late than never. But definitely it's a case of a wrong and a bad planning, because if you just do a simple arithmetic that 15,000 rupees a month into 12 is 1,80,000, into 4 years is 7,20,000. Now your own investment of 7,20,000 under no circumstances can give you 30 lakhs. It is almost impossible. So one must be very realistic. Yes, in just 3 to 4 years. Yes. So, and also we do not recommend investing in equity mutual funds unless your time horizon is 5 years or even longer. So 3 to 4 years is too short a period to be taking risk in equity market. We would suggest him to go for a balance fund, so that the volatility is less, and she gets best possible blend of debt and equity markets in next 3 to 4 years. But she should not expect more than 10 to 11% return, and she will fall short. So she will have to do some other planning. Either she should shift the goal if she is planning for her son to do MBA. Maybe her son first works for a couple of years and then decides to do an MBA, or she will have to downsize her goal of giving her son an education in an institute where the fees is lower, because this seems very difficult.
All right, we have another email. This has come in from SN Reddy. He writes, my age is 28. I am married and have 1 child. I invest in PPF and have investments in a few mutual funds. I want to save for my child and I want to invest more in mutual funds. Please suggest what I can do to diversify my portfolio.
Well, I must say, compliment him for building a very good, well-planned portfolio already, because he is having a PPF, he is having a EPF, and he is also having a VPF, which is voluntary provident fund. So definitely these provident funds, mixed variety of them, public, voluntary, and employees provident fund, would take good care of his retirement. Now, for his son's education, he already has made investments in a few large cap funds, and which are doing well, and the selection is very, very good. Now, what is needed is to give more balance to his portfolio. He needs to add couple of mid-cap funds. So he must consult his financial planner or do some research on some good websites and start fresh mutual fund SIPs of 5 to 8,000 rupees in some mid-cap funds, so that his portfolio becomes more balanced and more healthy, and he is definitely on course of achieving all his dreams very well, because he will definitely continue to rise in his own life, and he'll have more surpluses which he can continue to allocate higher amounts, whether he allocates some amounts to PF or he allocates more amounts to equity. So he is definitely on course of achieving all his goals very comfortably.
One of the problems we face when we begin to start planning for children is that we get very product centric, isn't it? We keep looking at all kinds of schemes that hit us, and all of them seem to have child written in them, but they could be from an insurance company, it could be an endowment policy, which does not give very good returns, certainly not going to match your 10 to 12% inflation that you talked of, education inflation. You have some mutual funds that offer such schemes. You have ULIPs which have such schemes. So how do you as a consumer break through this entire flood of information that comes to you which is product centric?
Yes, you see, first of all, there are few thumb rules which one must follow. One is that not necessarily that any scheme which has a child mentioned in the name itself would be the most ideal or the best possible option. One needs to study the features. Like you mentioned, all the traditional plans or the endowment plans of life insurance companies give you only the debt kind of returns, which cannot help you create wealth over a longer period. They are good only for giving you protection. But even for protection, one needs to go for a proper term plan, and the thumb rule for term plan is, again, which is part of the children protection planning, is to go for at least 7 to 10 times of your annual income. So just to give you an example, if the gentleman is earning say 15 lakhs of rupees, as an annual CTC, he should opt for a term plan of at least 1 crore of rupees, so that just in case anything happens to him, his family, his lifestyle is protected, and the goals of their education and marriage, etc., are taken care of. So that is must. And to get to a 1 crore of term plan, if you were to go through endowment plan, it is just not possible, because the premium itself would be few lakhs of rupees. But if you go for a pure term plan, the premium would be just in the range of 18,000 to 22,000, provided you are in around 30 to 35 years of age and healthy and you do not smoke, etc. So if you give all those declarations, you can get a cheap term plan, which is very good, mental peace for the entire family. Apart from that, a public provident fund account is also one of the mandatory things for each of your child and for each of your family members. Again, for lending the balance to overall portfolio. You should not put all your eggs in one basket, which is that don't put all your money only into equity mutual fund schemes, because at times that may be more risky. And then rest of your savings should go into a well balanced mutual fund SIP portfolio, where you should do a careful selection of a couple of large cap funds and 1 or 2 mid cap funds, and then followed by flexi cap fund or a value style fund, etc. So if you build your portfolio, you have a term plan, you have a few good well selected mutual fund SIPs, and you also have your public provident fund or employee provident fund, etc. I think you are on your course of not only creating wealth but leading a good socially responsible life.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chopra, for coming by and sharing your perspective with our viewers. All right, it's time to wrap up this edition of Money's Best Friend. Remember that having a plan will only give you the best results. However, sooner is always better than later. So whether your child is 1 month old or 15 years old, start planning today. If you have any queries related to equity, mutual funds, insurance, real estate, gold, then do write into us at moneysbestfriend@aajtak.com. And have a lovely weekend.